Near the quiet bends of the Colorado River, something moved, something tall, something upright. A group of hikers caught it on video just for a moment, but that moment changed everything. Through the branches, a figure walked, bipedal, reddish-brown, massive, and then it vanished. Gone, just like that.
It almost looks like
There's some rock coming
it's
down.
like waving around.
Is it?
Bigger than a normal size fan. Dude,
It's creepy.
Look at my phone, you can see it.
I want to see it in the phone.
I want to see too.
Moving like a bear. Oh my goodness.
Dude, that's weird.
Definitely. Guys, come look in the phone. You can see it. Definitely.
But not before the camera caught its eerie form, arms swinging mid-stride, head rising above the tree line, proportions too massive and fluid to be a man in costume, unless someone went to great lengths to pull off a stunt in the middle of nowhere. Is that likely? Or is something ancient still walking among us, a shadow in the night? A trail camera deep in the woods recorded a quiet moment in the dead of night. Set up to capture deer or coyotes, it caught something else entirely. A tall, upright figure stepped into the frame. It looked broad, heavy, and unmistakably bipedal. It wasn't crouching, it wasn't lurking. It was walking forward while in mid-stride, and it was huge. The image was clear enough to make out the details. The body looked thick with mass. The head rose high above the shoulders. The arms hung unnaturally low. There was a clear separation between limbs and torso, not the muddled blur of a distant animal. There was no indication of clothing, no straps, no seams, no puffiness that would suggest padding or disguise. No edges where a mask might end or fur might be stitched together. Just one continuous, solid silhouette, like it had been built, not worn. Skeptics had their usual explanations. Someone in a costume, a clever hoax. But the location made that hard to believe. It wasn't near a road or a trail. It was deep, remote, pitch-black wilderness with no signs of a setup or stage. And the way it moved was smooth, unhurried, and confident. It hadn't stumbled into the shot by accident. It moved like it belonged there, like it had always been there, eyes in the sky. From above, the truth had nowhere to hide. In a quiet stretch of forest, a drone camera panned gently across the treetops. It was just another casual flyover until something unexpected caught the lens. Below, walking along the forest edge, a figure emerged, moving on two legs, like it had always walked that way. The drone dipped slightly and the camera locked in. The creature didn't blend in. It stood out, clearly taller than the surrounding brush, clearly not shaped like a deer, or a person, or anything typical of the area. The footage was smooth, stable, and well lit. Viewers quickly noticed the sheer scale of the figure. When compared to nearby trees, it became obvious. This wasn't someone in a costume. It was far too large, far too deliberate. And then came the movement. It didn't look robotic. It didn't move like someone trying to act. It walked naturally, arms swinging with weight, each stride steady and grounded. No panic, no hesitation. As if it knew the terrain, as if it had done this before. And maybe it didn't care that it was being watched. Yellowstone's chilling secret. In August 2023, something unexpected surfaced from one of the most monitored and heavily visited places in America, Yellowstone National Park. It wasn't a tourist's shaky phone clip. It wasn't vague or low resolution. It was crisp, clear, unmistakable. An unbroken shot showed a large figure moving steadily across an open clearing. There was no camera shake, no digital noise, just a single upright form crossing the frame with purpose. The location made it even more unsettling. It wasn't a deep, unmapped forest. This was Yellowstone. Tourists wandered nearby. Rangers patrolled daily. Surveillance was everywhere. The figure itself was enormous, covered head to toe in thick fur. Its movements were relaxed. It didn't sneak, it didn't stop. It didn't appear curious or afraid. It simply walked, as if the land already belonged to it. And maybe it did, because nothing about this felt accidental. It wasn't lost. It wasn't startled. It didn't glance toward the camera or alter its path in any way. It moved like it had nothing to fear and nothing to prove. That calm confidence is what chilled viewers the most. This wasn't wilderness untouched by human presence. This was a national park filled with scientists, tourists, and constant surveillance. And still, the figure appeared and vanished. When the video reached park officials, their response was subdued. There was no alarm, no investigation, and no public acknowledgement. Only quiet reactions. No one offered an explanation. No press statement followed, which begged the question. Had they seen it before? Was this something known but never discussed? And if so, why? Because when a creature that size walks calmly through Yellowstone National Park, someone has to notice. Locals whisper, footage spreads, visitors post online, and still, the official silence remains, a blur in the frame. The camera had been rolling, the woods were still. Then something darted through the frame. It was fast. A large figure, coated in dark brown fur, moved from left to right, too quickly for the eye to follow. Yet when the footage was frozen, it wasn't a smear. There was a shape, an upright posture. Some jumped to conclusions. A bear, maybe. But bears didn't run like this. Not upright, not fluidly, not with a gait that mirrored a human stride, and certainly not at that speed. Apes, chimps, gorillas? Theoretically possible if this had taken place in Central Africa, but it hadn't. It was deep in American wilderness, far from zoos or any reports of escaped animals. Then came the most unexpected detail. The figure was smaller than most Bigfoot reports. This one looked younger, compact, but still upright, still quick, still nothing like the animals native to the region. A juvenile? And if it was young, then that implied something more like families, mating and breeding. Not just lone creatures wandering forests, but an entire unseen population that was living, hiding, surviving. Not alive, but real? Then came something that no one had been prepared for. Not a fleeting blur, not a shaky camera clip or an ambiguous shadow in the distance, but a body. It appeared to be suspended in what looked like an underground space, maybe a cave, maybe something man-made. The figure hung from the ceiling, bound at the wrists with clean modern rope. Its chest was exposed, limp and bloodied. Wounds peppered the skin. Some looked like bullet holes, others less obvious, less explainable. The body was covered in tangled gray hair, thickest around the arms and shoulders. The fur appeared matted, clumped with dirt and blood. But it was the face that stopped people from getting cold. It didn't look fully animal. It didn't look fully human. It was somewhere in between. The brow was heavy, the eyes sunken. The cheekbones are pronounced. The mouth sagged, slack and lifeless. It looked aged, like something that had seen decades, maybe centuries. And despite the brutality of its injuries, the face didn't wear terror. It looked resigned, like it knew this was coming. The space itself was small and dim. Whoever or whatever had done this had been deliberate. This wasn't a creature that had wandered into the wrong place at the wrong time. This was something hunted and possibly displayed. If it was fake, it was masterful. The anatomical detail alone would have taken months to create. Skin textures, wound placement, sagging muscle mass, and blood trails following gravity. Everything looked right, real, disturbingly so. But if it wasn't a fake, then someone had done the unthinkable. They had hunted Bigfoot, killed it, tied it up, and left behind the proof. The Tennessee Vault encounter. High above Tennessee's winding valleys sat Kingsman Vault, a peaceful summit surrounded by thick forest and scenic overlooks. Known mostly for its trails and quiet beauty, it had been just another stop for weekend hikers. Until one video changed that. It began like any other trail recording. Hikers chatting, boots crunching over dirt, the soft calls of birds in the canopy. But then the tone shifted. Something was there. High in the trees, tucked between branches, a figure stood. At first, it could have been mistaken for natural debris, but then it shifted, subtly, just enough to prove it wasn't part of the forest. It moved.
What's he doing?
And it wasn't seen by one person. There was a crowd with multiple witnesses, phones out, cameras pointed. The footage showed not fear, but confusion. People were trying to make sense of what they were looking at. In the storm of comments that followed, one stood out, a man from Canada, an experienced outdoor guide. He had led backcountry tours for years and seen every kind of animal the wilderness had to offer. But one summer, while camping near a river with 3 others, he had seen something across the water. It stood upright. It watched them. And the fear it sparked wasn't logical, it was instinctive. They packed up immediately, because sometimes you don't need a growl, or a chase, or a threat. Sometimes you just know. And the more these sightings piled up, the more a pattern emerged. It wasn't just about trees or isolation. It was about water. Sightings happened there, again and again. Why? No one knew for sure. But one truth began to take shape. Where the water ran cold and the trees grew thick, something was watching. And it didn't want to be found. Oregon's unusual anatomy. In the small town of McMinnville, Oregon, where stories of Bigfoot echo like folklore passed through generations, a still image emerged. But this wasn't another smudge in the corner of a lens. This wasn't something you had to squint at. It was clean, detailed, and unsettlingly clear. The photo was submitted to the Rocky Mountain Sasquatch Organization, a group familiar with hoaxes, misidentifications, and fakes. But even they paused at this one. Centered in the frame stood a figure that didn't look quite human and didn't look entirely animal either. It wasn't moving, but its posture was tense, like a spring coiled and ready. Every muscle seemed to carry weight. And then, there were the arms. They hung unnaturally low. Not just longer than average, but thick, ropey with muscle, and shaped in a way that defied human anatomy. The proportions were all wrong. From shoulder to wrist, the length was exaggerated, too much for a human skeleton to accommodate without looking deformed. These weren't limbs built for balance or agility. They were built for brute force. The torso stood out too, rounded like a barrel. Not the lean frame of a person in a suit, but something heavier. Something that carried its weight like it was meant to. It gave the figure a rooted, grounded stance, like it couldn't be easily moved if it didn't want to be. The head sat lower than expected on the shoulders, with almost no visible neck. And it was tilted slightly, as if the creature was watching the camera. Not in fear, not in surprise, in awareness. The details only got stranger the closer you looked. The fur was thick but uneven, clumping naturally in some places, matted in others. Not a single visible seam, no zipper down the back, no mismatched textures from a glued-on mask or synthetic pelt. The limbs didn't bulge awkwardly like fabric stuffed with foam. They looked real, heavy, organic. No human eye holes, no rigid jawline, no giveaway edges. Everything about the figure challenged the idea of costume, of staging, of simple trickery. Because even the best suits are made for humans, and this thing didn't follow human rules. The more you analyzed it, the more it slipped from explanation. It didn't match our anatomy, but it matched something. Something people have been describing for decades. And if that photo wasn't a fake, and there's no clear sign that it was, then someone got closer to Bigfoot than anyone else ever has. And they brought back proof, the clearest video ever. There are countless clips out there. Most of them are grainy, distant, a blur in the trees, a flash of movement, maybe a shape behind a bush. But then this one surfaced and changed everything. It wasn't filmed from a mile away. It was right there, in focus, and dangerously close. The camera captures a figure walking calmly through the woods with no sense of urgency. It didn't weave through trees like something being hunted. It walked in a straight line through open space like it had done so 1,000 times before. Its body towered over the brush, dwarfing the surrounding vegetation. Every step it took was heavy but smooth, like the weight of its frame was distributed perfectly with each stride. Not clumsy, not awkward, it moved with intention, like it belonged there. But that's not what shook people. It was the way it ignored the camera. It didn't flinch when it stepped into the open. It didn't react to the sound of leaves crunching or twigs snapping. And maybe that's what made it feel so real. Because animals react, humans react, but this creature, it didn't. Meanwhile, the person behind the camera was clearly overwhelmed. The footage stutters, jitters, and sways out of focus. You can sense the tension, something between panic and disbelief. Was it fear? Was it awe? Or had the cameraman realized in that exact moment that they had captured something not meant to be seen? Some speculate the shaky filming was a cover, that the person behind the lens was deliberately obscuring details to keep the mystery alive. But that theory fades when you watch closely, because despite the wobble, the details still come through. You can see the creature's shoulders flex as it walks, the curve of its spine, the way its fur shifts with each step. There's no sign of fabric, no unnatural texture, no seams or strange outlines. The body isn't lumpy like a costume, it's solid, muscular. It moved with purpose. It moved like it knew the terrain. And most unsettling of all, it moved like it wasn't afraid of anything. It didn't need to prove anything. It didn't need to roar or pose or run away. It just needed to walk. And that was enough. The demon in the dark. At night, the forest became a different world. Shadows stretched longer. Sounds carried farther. And in one chilling piece of night vision footage, something stepped into view. The figure had been captured in black and white, moving through a late autumn forest. The trees were bare. The ground was thick with fallen leaves. The camera picked up everything clearly, but when the image froze, so did everyone watching. Its face was unlike anything previously documented. Sunken eyes, hollow and deep. A mouth twisted unnaturally. The kind of face that seemed pulled from a nightmare rather than nature. It didn't look like a gorilla. It didn't look like a man. It looked wrong. The creature stood hunched near a broken stump, leaning forward with both arms hanging low. Was it foraging? Sniffing? Listening? Whatever it was doing, it moved with precision, like it was aware of everything around it. Like this wasn't its first time being seen or being filmed. The way it occupied the space, calm, still, deliberate, made it clear this wasn't a costume thrown over a person. It had mass, weight, presence. The image had high contrast, revealing every shadow and edge in the frame. And yet, nothing about the figure's shape felt artificial. There was no plastic gleam, no visible stitching, no stiff posture that betrayed a performer inside. If someone had faked it, they hadn't just put on a suit. They had become something else. Into the Michigan snow. On January 12, 2025, Michigan's backcountry lay buried in snow, untouched. A lone hiker had stepped into the wilderness, expecting solitude, maybe clarity. The only sound came from the soft crunch of his boots pressing into frozen ground. Cold air wrapped around the trees. Stillness stretched for miles, but silence never lasted long. Without warning, a sound tore through the quiet. It was deep, guttural, not a howl, not a roar.
Oh my God.
It rang out through the trees, too low to be wind, too full of presence to be distant. The hiker froze. At first it sounded faint, like something far off. Then it came again. Louder, closer. The echoes tightened. The forest felt like it was folding in. He couldn't see it. Not fully, just flashes of movement through the trees. Dark shapes where nothing should have been. A figure maybe, or many, always out of reach. Still, he kept moving. But his voice, captured in the footage, told a different story. It shifted. Hesitation crept in. A subtle tremor. That moment when instinct overrides logic. He described the sound again later. Said it didn't match anything in his years of hiking. Not coyotes, not bears, not wolves. Nothing moved like that. Nothing sounded like that. This wasn't the noise of an animal calling out. It was a warning. Whatever it wasn't simply wandering the forest. It was aware of him. It felt calculated. It felt intelligent. He eventually made it back. Cold, rattled, unharmed, at least on the surface. But his voice told the rest. There was something in the tone, something unsettled. A sense of realization that once something out there sees you, once it knows who you are, the forest never feels the same again. Face to face in the forest. In this short clip, the man stood alone in the woods. The camera remained steady. No shaking hands, no frantic movement, just a still shot of trees, moss, and quiet. It seemed uneventful until it wasn't. Out from behind the trees, a figure stepped into view. It walked straight into frame, tall, wide, and certain of its path. Its fur was dark black, thick and ragged, but its face stood out, pale, almost exposed. Dark eyes sat deep under a heavy brow. The upper face appeared alert, intense. The lower half was buried beneath a coarse black beard that hung like a shadow down its chest. It wasn't snarling. It didn't seem threatened. And it wasn't lost. It simply walked, past the man, past the camera, without a glance, without hesitation. Viewers were divided. Some claimed it looked too human. The stride is too smooth. The posture is too upright. But then came the more difficult question. Who would go to those lengths? Who would craft a suit that is convincing, wear it into the deep woods, and stroll past someone without trying to scare them? No performance, no gimmicks, just presence. And if it had been a hoax, it was pulled off without any of the drama that hoaxes rely on. Which raised a darker question. What kind of creature didn't care if it was caught on camera? What kind of creature had nothing to hide? Sasquatch Canyon Mystery. Deep in the wilderness, a team drove 35 miles into Sasquatch Canyon. Their task was routine, service, and check remote game cameras scattered across the forest. Everything had gone as expected. They were almost done. Then something shifted. As they rounded a bend just to the left of the trail, they saw it. Pressed behind a tree like it had been caught mid-step. The dashcam caught it, a blur, but clear enough to see. Just before disappearing, the creature ducked behind the trunk. The tree, nearly 10 feet tall, shook violently. Whatever had brushed it had done so with serious force. One team member stepped out of the vehicle. He listened, scanned the trees. Then he saw it again. Just past the first tree line, something moved quickly, but not carelessly. A figure fading deeper into the brush. No crashing, no wild retreat. It was moving with precision. Not fear, it didn't run. It waited for the right moment and slipped away, like it knew exactly how to vanish without being followed. This wasn't just an animal that had wandered too close. It had been aware. It had seen them. And in one swift motion, it disappeared like it had done this many times before. Whatever it was, man, beast, or something else, it didn't panic. It just made sure it was never seen again. Across forests, rivers, snowy trails, and shadowed valleys, these sightings aren't slowing down. From Tennessee to Oregon, Michigan to Yellowstone, the evidence stacks higher every year. There are trail cams, drone footage, eyewitness accounts, photos, screams in the night, and now, close-ups. Yet the mystery remains. Is this all a hoax, a collective fantasy? Or are we ignoring a truth that's been walking beside us for generations? If even one of these clips is real, then everything changes, because Bigfoot isn't just a story around a campfire anymore. It's walking, watching, waiting.